It is October the 1st. It is a beautiful fall day, and I want to give you a tour of the garden. This weekend, my son is getting married, and we're so excited about that. And I've got company coming into town, so we got a lot of things going on. But right now, it's kind of calm, and we have just a few minutes, and the sun is out, and it's shining. So I want to give you a tour of the garden and just show you how things are evolving as we move into fall. A lot of people don't grow gardens in the fall. They think of gardening more as a springtime or summertime event, but I'm going all year round, even in the winter. So let me show you what I'm doing right now. So I have been working on the garden and making some updates as we've gotten into fall, at the end of summer and starting into fall. It's time to change out some of the vegetables that I'm growing, and I put in some new raised beds, and so I'm going to show you a little bit about that. So here I built a new raised bed out of some old pallets that we had, and put this in. It's a nice little spot here. There was a hay bale planter here, but that finished out, and the hay bales had rotted down completely, so it made some really good compost. Dug up the sweet potatoes that I had in there. The beans were finished, and the watermelons were finished in there. And so put in this, and we're putting some cold weather crops in here. So I direct seed planted some beets. They are just beginning to come up, little tiny seedlings. Also, I planted some cabbage here, and there's a cabbage seedling that is coming up. And I planted some kale here, and I planted 6 plants, and of the 6 plants, about 3 of them are doing pretty good. 3 of them are just barely kind of not thriving. One of them's just barely hanging on, but so that's that. These are sweet potatoes that are still growing, and they probably have 2 or 3 more weeks before they'll be ready to harvest. But I'm excited about that. That is a Murasaki, which is a purple-skinned, white-fleshed sweet potato. Beans have been one of my favorite things that I've grown this season. These are field peas that are growing on an arch trellis. I've gotten so many beans this year, and that's great. They're a great survival crop. You could pretty much live off of beans if you needed to. And so I've got plenty of beans in the freezer. I have field peas, black-eyed peas, and my favorite variety that I discovered this year, cream peas. Also, I am growing collards. This is a new crop that's starting and will be good for the fall. Over here, I have some radishes and some beets growing. Still getting sweet peppers, and these are yellow, orange, and chocolate peppers. Broccoli, starting new broccoli plants for the fall. We eat a lot of broccoli, so I'm hoping to get a lot of that. We are still getting okra, and these jambalaya okra have done great. Growing them in buckets, and they are producing beautifully. And every day we get okra off of that. If you haven't had a chance yet, check out my video on how to make okra fries, a new recipe that we discovered that we really enjoy. Don't okra have pretty flowers? They are actually in the hibiscus family, so they do have pretty flowers. We still have more peppers over here coming in. You may remember from some of my past videos how I had made hay bale planters. Well, this is an example of the hay bale planter after it is spent. All the hay is decomposed, and it's just a beautiful mulch that's there now. And what I'll do with this is I will spread it out, and I think I'm either going to make a raised bed here, or I'm going to make an in-ground bed between these two hay bales. And I have put a cover crop on this hay bale, which is a Austrian winter pea, which is an edible pea, sweet pea type plant, but it's also really good for enriching your soil. So I'm hoping that that'll do that and help keep weeds from growing as well. Now in this bale, had a problem. I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but yellow jackets made a nest in this hay bale. And so that's why it looks really bad. When I saw the yellow jackets were in there, I thought, well, I'm gonna try to burn them out of there to get rid of them. So I put a bunch of wood and twigs and all kinds of stuff, and I burned that thing for I started burning it one afternoon and it burned, and then it smoldered all night long while I was sleeping. Came back out the next day and it was just nothing but ash. But the yellow jackets are still going in and out of the hole. So I guess I'll just have to wait until it gets cold and they go away, unless somebody out there has an idea for how to get rid of yellow jackets, because I totally failed on that. But as soon as the yellow jackets are gone, then I can spread that out and make another garden with it. These over here are more Murasaki sweet potatoes. They are all growing in planters that look like that, but you can see how they have spread out and grown. And it's, I don't know, I just love that. They're beautiful. I really like those sweet potatoes, and I'm looking forward to eating them as well. I built another raised bed out of pallets down here, so I've got plenty of space for some new stuff here. I planted some broccoli in there, so that's going well. That was one of my flowers left over. And here I have some seed starts. I started them inside, and then when they started sprouting, I brought them outside. It's still warm here in the 80s during the day and in the 60s at night. So these can do well outside and get lots of light. So I have broccoli seedlings growing, lettuce, kale, and cabbage all sprouting. And over here I have some sweet agent onions seedlings that are starting to germinate. And once those get going, I'm going to plant this bed out here with onions and maybe some garlic as well. So that'll be a crop that grows through the winter and will be harvested next spring. Now you may remember from some of my past videos that over here I had grown sweet or sugar snap peas and carrots, and then when those were done I planted peanuts. So I'm really excited about these. Look how lush and full those peanuts are. I've never grown peanuts before, but I love boiled peanuts, so I'm excited about that. And those should be ready mid-October to try to harvest those, and hopefully we'll get lots and lots of good peanuts. The plants sure do look good, so hopefully the peanuts look good as well. In this bed also I planted some of those Austrian sweet peas, which will help bring nitrogen into the soil. And I think I'm going to let these just go over the winter. Those Austrian winter peas will survive through the winter. They're made to grow in the cold. They don't like the hot, but they do just fine when it's really cold outside. And so what they do is they will take nitrogen from the air and will fix it into the soil. And then next spring when I plant something in this, the soil should be nice and fertile. This scraggly patch over here is what's left of my black-eyed peas. I've gotten tons of black-eyed peas already off of there, and so I think I'm about done with this. and you can tell they look pretty rough too. So, but they've done their job, and I've got a freezer full of black-eyed peas, field peas, and cream peas. So, ready to go on that. But that is my backyard garden, and my front garden is still going too. I'll show you that in just a second. So as we're walking out here to the front, you see what I call my annex garden, and I grew green beans and watermelon out here this summer, and I got lots of watermelons. That was a success, the Desert King watermelon. However, they were sweet, but it wasn't the best watermelon flavor that I've ever had. So I think I'm gonna try something different next year. But I still counted a success. You see this patch here, and how full and how lush it is? Well, inside that is the same thing as what you saw in the backyard, is one of those hay bale planters. And so in this little patch, I have lots of different things growing together. I grew watermelon with zipper cream peas, and some flowers, and even have some peppers growing in there all together, and sweet potatoes as well. And so that was kind of exciting. So this is one of the hay bale planters that finished, and I went ahead and broke it down, pulled out all of the sweet potato vines and threw them over there, and this is what's left over. So after the garden is finished, you got all this great soil and mulch, which can be used to grow other things. So probably going to spread this out. In this front area, I'm going to work with my neighbor. He has a tractor, and I'm going to turn this into some in-ground garden beds. I'm excited about that, to try in-ground gardening next spring. But this is what I've got right now. And on these pallets, I have buckets, and you see here I've got more of those Murasaki sweet potatoes that are growing. They look like they need a little bit of water. They're a little bit wilted. In these buckets, I had more black-eyed peas growing, but I went ahead and finished those and pulled them. These zipper cream peas have just been fabulous. They every time I think they're done, they just keep giving me more and more and more peas. And of all of the peas that we've grown, those are the ones that we think taste the best. They all taste good, but those taste really good. We really enjoy them. So over here, this is another hay bale. I tried to plant some fall potatoes, Irish potatoes, and see if that would work, but haven't had too much success with it. This entire planter was planted with potatoes, but the only one that came up, I think this is a potato plant. But this whole thing should be covered in potatoes. It just didn't work. These pretty flowers over here are actually a weed that has thorns on it. I don't know what it is. If you know what it is, how about commenting and letting me know? But they're pretty, and I probably should pull them up, but I'll just let the flowers be and let them be pretty. Besides the fact that they've got these terrible thorns on them, and I don't want to mess with that. So I'm just kind of letting this thing sit. Eventually, like I said, what I'm going to do, my neighbor is going to come till up a garden bed for me, and I'm just going to spread that hay bale, that hay bale, and that hay bale all into one big long garden bed. So that'll work out nicely. We didn't just grow vegetables this year. We also had a lot of fun with flowers. My wife, I built this flower bed for her, and she really made it look pretty. It really helps when you grow your own flowers from seeds, because you can just have so many different kinds of flowers and so many. See, look at all these marigolds that we had here. We all started all of those from seed. The zinnias. Some of these were plants that she bought from nurseries, but a lot of them were started from seeds. And she's done a great job making that a really pretty bed. And she's also done the same thing up here on our front porch. And I just love, especially on a pretty day like today, coming out here and sitting and enjoying the beautiful weather, and just enjoying the beauty of God's creation. So as I'm walking back to the backyard again, I want to show you another project that I'm working on, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of water. If you watched some of my early videos, you knew how I was talking about how it was going to be hard to grow things way out there in the front yard because it didn't have water out there. And I ended up having to drag a really long water hose all the way from the front of the house out there, just so we could water. When the temperature's like it is right now, it's not really that bad. But when it's in the middle of June, July, and August, and it's really hot, I was out here watering every day. And it wasn't too bad. It took me about 45 minutes to water both the front and the back. So I didn't mind so much, not enough to worry about trying to put in an automatic system or anything like that. But what we did find was that our water bill went up. It wasn't anything we couldn't afford, but it was a significant increase. And so I got to thinking about that and planning for next year, and I came up with I didn't come up with this on my own. I got some ideas from other people that I saw on YouTube and the internet, and from them I took some information and came up with my own design. Because we get water, here's the thing, we get water, every week we get water, and it may not be enough to satisfy the plants every day, so you have to supplement from the garden hose. But we get more rain than the plants can hold in one rain, if that makes any sense. So what I've said was, and here's the other thing, the rain that comes from the sky, it is so much better for the plants than the water you get from the water hose. You can tell a difference. If you get a good rain, the plants just pop, flowers bloom, plants surge in their growth. When you water with the garden hose, it's just it's just kind of like getting them by. They just don't like it as much. So here's what I did. I got these Ibc Water Totes. Each one of these cubes holds 275 gallons of water. So in this stack, that is 550 gallons when it's completely full. And y'all remember when Hurricane Ida came through and we got a good dousage of rain? Well, from my roof, I have a gutter on the back, and from my roof, and this is just, you think about my roof, it's got two sides to it. It's got a front side and it's got a back side, and it basically has gutters on each corner. So in the back, it has a gutter on that side and a gutter on this side. So from half of my roof, so from 1/4 of my roof during Hurricane Ida, I was able to collect enough water to fill both of these totes up with water. That's 550 gallons. And it was still raining, and then, it was just basically overflowing. And so from that few days of rain, I was able to collect water on this, and ever since then, I've been watering this back garden exclusively from my water totes. I haven't had to use the water hose at all. And I haven't filled the totes back up, because after I got them filled up full, I reinserted the gutter and stopped collecting water. So this is just an initial foray into this project. Ultimately, I'm going to have this set up so that we catch water off of the roof, fill up the barrels, and then everything that's beyond that, everything that overflows, will go back out the downspout. So this totes will kind of be a perpetual system that will, every time it rains, they will collect water until they're full, and then they will overflow out into the gutter. That's the ultimate plan, and I will do that, but I'm not gonna probably finish that plan out until after we get through the winter, because I don't want these to be full of water and then go through the winter and have them freeze and crack them or anything like that. So ultimately I'm going to empty them during the winter and then just keep them, when it gets warm again, we'll have the full system in place. But now think about this. Since Hurricane Ida, what was that, at the beginning of September, close to it, I have watered exclusively just from that one rain. And we're talking about rainwater, not city water with the chlorine and the fluoride and all that in it. This is just pure rainwater that the plants love. And I still have a little less than 100 gallons left. So I'll probably have another week, maybe 2 weeks of water just from this one system. So I'm very confident that once it gets hot again, with this system, I will be able to water at least this back property exclusively with rainwater, and I won't have to rely on the city at all. And so that's really cool to me. I love the idea of self-sufficiency. I mean, because what happens if something goes out in the water? What happens if there's some kind of problem? Well, as long as it's raining, I'll be able to collect water and we'll have that. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about water. In the Bible, Jesus was going through Samaria. Normally Jews didn't like to go through Samaria because Samaritans and Jews didn't get along. They were rivals, kind of at odds with each other. And so usually when Jews went on a trip, they tried to avoid Samaria. But Jesus wasn't like regular people. He did things a little bit differently. He went right through Samaria because he knew that God loves all people. And so he went right on through Samaria, and he stopped off at a place called Jacob's Well. While he was there, the disciples went to town to buy some food, and Jesus stayed there at the well. And a lady came in the middle of the day to collect water. Now, think about that. I don't know about you, but when it's really hot, I like to get out and do my chores outside early in the morning before it gets hot, or late in the day after most of the heat is passed. I don't try to do it in the middle of the day. But this lady came out in the middle of the day. There's a clue right there. Probably she did that because, as we'll find in the story, she was not exactly the kind of person that people in her community would think highly of. As Jesus talks to her, he says, I would like a drink of water. Would you draw me a drink of water from the well? And they have this whole conversation, and she's like, why are you talking to me? You're a Jewish man and I'm a Samaritan woman, and we don't get along. Why are you talking to me? And then of course Jesus is like, well, if you knew who I was, then you would ask me and I would give you living water. And she's like, well, how are you going to do that? You don't even have a bucket to draw water out of this well. And he says, well, I have living water, and if you draw water out of this well, you'll be thirsty again tomorrow. But the water I give you becomes a perpetual spring, wells up from inside you, and you will never be thirsty again. She's like, well, that would be great. Then I wouldn't have to come out here to this well anymore and draw a well. Think about how difficult that is. We're just so blessed that all we have to do is turn on the water faucet. But in many parts of the world today, and certainly in the ancient world, They had to go to the well and draw their water every day. Can you imagine? How much water do you use in a typical day? I did a little research on that, and the average family in America uses 100 gallons of water a day. Can you imagine if you had to go to a well and with a 5-gallon bucket, or say maybe 2 5-gallon buckets, that's 10 gallons, and you had to carry all of your water back to your house every day? Well, this woman didn't want to have to do that, and so she's interested in this living water that Jesus has. And he says, well, tell you what, go get your husband and bring him back here, and then we'll talk about it. And she says, I don't have a husband. And Jesus knows, because Jesus is God. He says, I know. You've had 5 husbands, and the one that you're living with now is not your husband. See, he knew that. And now we see why that woman didn't want to come to the well in the cool of the morning or in the cool of the evening, because all the other women from town, all the other people from town would be at the well then. She came in the middle of the day because that's when she knew no one else would be there, and no one would be there to look down their noses at her. Jesus didn't look down his nose at her, though. Of all the people in the Samaritan village he could have spoke to, he spoke to this woman, who everybody else despised. And he tells her that he has living water. And she starts asking questions, trying to change the subject. She says, well, why is it that you Jews want to say you have to worship in the temple in Jerusalem, while we say you worship up here on the mountain? She's trying to change the subject. Doesn't like the fact that he knows all about her. Jesus is not going to have any of that. He says, look, one day it won't matter where you worship. One day people will worship God in spirit and in truth. But if you knew who I was, you would ask, and I would give you living water. And she says, well, I know one day a Messiah is going to come, and he will explain all of these things to us. And Jesus says, I am that man, and I'm here to you today. And you know, Jesus, he didn't come to the good, upstanding citizens of that town. He came to this woman who everybody else looked down on, because God loves everybody. And God reaches out, sometimes God reaches out to the people that need him the most, the people that are struggling the most, the people that are looked down on by everyone else. And that's one of the things that he shows us here. So one of the first people in the Bible that Jesus reveals himself to as the Messiah, the one who was anointed and chosen by God to save the world, but one of the people that he tells that to first is this woman, which we know as the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well. Water is so important. We take it for granted, but we can't live without it. We can't grow a garden without it. I mean, people will think, you know, and I used to think this too, well, all you got to have is the rain that comes from the sky. God gives us rain, and that's all you need. You don't have to water your garden. Well, the fact is, and people have known this for millennia, you can only grow so much food merely relying on rain that comes from the sky. Plants, because rain that comes from the sky is unpredictable. Sometimes it's regular and it's all that you need, but then you might go for a week. You might go for 2 weeks. Here in Georgia, in past years, I know we've gone for a month without having any significant rain. And that's just not enough to really have a garden thrive. And so if you're going to have a garden thrive, you've got to be able to irrigate it. And this goes all the way back to ancient civilizations like Egypt and Israel and Persia and Rome. All of these places learned how to take the water that comes from rain and turn it and and store it and use it so that they can spread out that irrigation, whether they stored it in rivers and lakes and ponds, or whether they use cisterns or wells. But you have to have a more regular water source than just what you can get from, you know, daily, weekly, monthly rain. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to do with that water tower system there. Of course, today we have water that comes from city municipal sources, and that's a wonderful blessing that we have. Have you ever thought about, though, what would happen if you didn't have that, or if there was some kind of disruption in it? I know when I was in my 20s, we had a huge flood back in, I think it was 1993 or 1994. We had a huge flood in Georgia, and it disrupted the water in our homes. We didn't have water in our homes for about a week, and then after that, we were on you couldn't drink the water. Even though we had water coming through the pipes again, you couldn't drink it because it had been contaminated. And so we had to drink bottled water, and we had to flush our toilets with like we had at the time my fiance had her family had a pool, and so we filled up a big trash can with water, and we used that water to flush the toilets, fill up a bucket and pour it in the toilet. So, you know, disruptions don't happen often, but they can happen, and nothing is guaranteed. And so I don't know, I just like the idea. Probably would never need it, probably would never have to rely on it, but I like the idea of having that as 500 gallons over there, always available to water my garden. And if things got really bad, I could use it to wash my hands, wash my clothes. I could even boil it and sterilize it and use it to drink. So I think it's a cool thing. And I think it's a cool thing to think about how important water is. But I also think it's a cool thing to realize that Jesus compared himself, he compared God to being as important and necessary as the water that keeps us alive. So anyway, that's my thoughts today, and that's a tour of my garden. Thanks for checking in. We still got a lot more growing to do. A lot of people only grow a garden in the springtime or in summer, but I'm probably going to be I think I started this whole thing, these video series is in February, but here it is, it's October, and I still got things just getting started. And I'm going to be growing onions and garlic through the winter, probably do some carrots as well. I'm going to be planting some strawberries, which are also going to overwinter. And so I'll be going 12 full months of doing gardening, and then we'll be just going around a whole circle, starting right back into things in the springtime. So I hope you'll keep checking back and seeing some of my garden videos. Just keep up with what's going on. I hope that you learn something from it. I'm learning as well, because I am not an expert by any means, but I'm learning by doing, and it is so satisfying, and it's just a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you're along on the journey with me. So thank you for joining me today, and I want you to know that God loves you, and I do too. God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.